Let's get to our panel, our regular panel on a Tuesday. The former Labor Minister Stephen Conroy and former Victorian Liberal Party President Michael Kroger. Gents, great to see you both. Stephen, I'll start with you. That the 48th Parliament's kicked off and the image is quite stark, isn't it? Seeing Labor go right around the horseshoe of the Parliament onto the other side, I think for the first time in the House of Reps since the Second World War.
Yeah, look, it is extraordinary. It's a visual reminder of the extent of the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's success at the last election. It is striking. I mean, obviously I was in Parliament for 20 years and we had some heavy defeats, but this is just an extraordinary outcome. And that image is like, it just makes me smile a lot.
And I can imagine that, Michael, the flip side is how small that cohort is of the coalition. It's having been here in the days of the Howard government, where really it's the flip side of what we're seeing today. It's a low ebb for the Liberal Party and a lot of hard work ahead.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt about that. Yeah, it is depressing, but as Stephen says, both of us have been here before on the winning and the losing side. And our parties, the end of our parties, has been predicted many, many times over the decades that I've been around. So there is a lot of work to be done. There are many lessons out of the federal election, and no doubt they'll be revealed in due course when we have another of our endless post-election reviews telling us we need more women and blah, 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 all of which is true. We know all that. It's just repeating the same things over and over again. The answer is a deep policy engagement with the electorate, releasing policies much earlier, defining who you are and what you stand for, and being a lot closer to the ground. One of the lessons out of the election is Albanese was much closer to the ground. It cost the Australian taxpayer a lot of money with wage increases, childcare, aged care, increased Medicare funding, etc. But he won the election, so all credit to him.
Yeah, and I think Stephen, one of the things that Michael often talks about, I agree with him 100% on this, is a fundamental thing in politics, is you've got to own the future. Yep. You've got to say that tomorrow is better than today, Stephen, and that's fundamentally a lot of what the government did. Maybe, as Michael says, it was too costly, but things like the HEX reduction resonated with younger voters, and the results spoke for itself.
Absolutely. And to Michael's credit, he has consistently said the Liberals have to define themselves. They've got to have a policy agenda. They've got to understand the changing demographics. So Michael has been calling for that for 3 or 4 years now. And tragically for his side of politics, they wouldn't take his advice. So the real challenge now for the Liberal Party is firstly not to give up. Michael's dead right. Like, we've been written off. Like, I lost count of how many times Labor has been written off. I remember waking up on the Sunday morning after the 2004 Mark Latham election and thought, we're out of government for the next 5-10 years. And yet by 2007, we won 3 years later. So, Michael's dead right. You can't give up. Ignore all the commentators saying you're finished, but build a solid base. Exactly. And that's a really important message that, for once, I hope that they listen to Michael.
And indeed, and the thing if we reflect on some of the sort of lessons of history and how it all works, because I think fundamentally a lot of it is consistent with, say, the aspiration message from John Howard, and it's something that Anthony Albanese's really seized on, Michael. I know he's from the left and so on, but there's a lot of the Howard approach, like when he focuses on aspiration, saying no one left behind, no one held back, and that sort of thing. He's really trying to channel into that message about aspiration that I think Australians really connect with.
Well, that's right. And, to his credit, Latham identified that after the 2004 election, that Labor needed to be a lot more aspirational. As we've just said, you've got to believe that tomorrow is going to be better than yesterday. And what party gives me hope that things will be better for me, my family, my job, my standard of living and my community? And unless you can tap into that resonance of those feelings of the electorate, you're going to find it hard to win. The enduring lesson for me out of this election is this. The electorate was feeling very fragile, and they're looking for the party that's got their back. Now, who portrayed themselves in the cost of, this is because of the cost of living crisis, which is worse than anyone can imagine down there in middle and lower income land. Who do people feel had their back? Now, at the end of the day, parents that can't afford school books, food or school uniforms are looking for someone who can give them urgent relief by lunchtime, by dinner time. Who can protect me? I'm fragile. Albanese promised, and they played this card in 16, and it works very well every time, although it didn't work too well in Tasmania, which is Medicare. At least I've got my Medicare under this bloke. Labor had on that campaign, as they always do, that the Liberals going to take away your Medicare card and slash funding, etc. But with the urgent care clinics, etc., it gave people a sense of security. I may not be able to afford school books and uniforms, but at least at the end of the day, I've got my Medicare card. I've got a wage increase if I'm in certain sectors where he's promised wage increases or encouraged the Commission to promote wage increases. The electorate felt at the end of the day Albanese had their back more than the coalition. He was closer to the ground. That's the overwhelming reason he did well.
One of the things that I've noticed when you do have a big majority and numbers, maybe MPs that didn't expect to win, senators even, who end up in the chamber, you can get the odd loose cannon that you've got to try and manage, Stephen.
Yeah, look, it's a better problem to have than the alternative, firstly. But look, Albo has said from day one he became Prime Minister, he would govern from the centre. And he has continued successfully to do that. I mean, there's a lot of the right-wing commentators at the moment saying, oh, foreign policy, China, the US, he should be going to see the President Trump. He has been consistent. He's saying we've got to have a relationship with both countries, and he is working hard to maintain an important trade relationship with China. And he'll also continue to pursue AUKUS and try and defend Australia from tariffs, but recognising that it does not matter what your previous relationship with America has been. Donald Trump's attacked Europe, he's attacked Canada, he's attacked Mexico. So it does not matter, okay? So you've got to take a strategic approach to dealing with Trump. And that's why the Prime Minister is not going to be rushed into it, because a few commentators wanted to be dragged into the Oval Office and given a spanking, they hope, by Donald Trump. He is being very consistent and considered. And that's why the Australian people are backing him in those two polls yesterday. They are happy with the steady and consistent approach that Albo is taking on those sorts of issues.
Michael, what did you think of the polls? Is it obviously so soon after an election? Do you think that it's of any interest, or is just all predictable where you'd expect the numbers to be?
No, I think they're always interesting polls. Gary Morgan's organisation predicted this 2 weeks ago. They pointed out that was the number, 57, 58 to Labor. No, this is what happens when you spend 2 months introspectively telling everyone how bad you are. Oh, we didn't connect with young people. We need more women. We've got to talk about quotas. We didn't have a policy agenda. When you go into this deep ideological and policy depression for 2 months and say, aren't we terrible? Well, of course your vote's going to go down. So that's why the coalition's got to recognise the next election's only 2.5 years away, and it takes a long time to get a message across, and they need to start immediately on policy development and policy release. This whole notion that you just criticise the other side and release a few policies during the election, which most people won't notice. I mean, they notice the petrol price cut because Peter Dutton had to go to petrol stations, 50 times during the election, or 13 times, whatever it was. But you've got to start early. You've got to define yourself. Who are you? What do you stand for? What's the general impression? Voters vote according to their general impression of the party. If you don't build up a general impression over a 3-year period, then you're bound to be clobbered at the election, and that's what happened to us. Gone are the days when you just get into government by criticising the other side. The electorate are looking for answers. We have a highly educated electorate. They're looking for answers. They're looking for people with vision and hope. And so, of course, those polls would go down, KG, when we spend 2 months saying how bad we are. The good news is I think Susan Lee has made a very impressive start, and you would be very wrong to underestimate her. There was an article in the Fairfax Press today saying that she's not going to be challenged. Well, I don't think anyone's thinking about that whatsoever. I think she's made a very strong start, and I think she's going to shock everybody down the track.
Okay, Michael, Stephen, great to see you both. Look forward to catching up again soon.